Tom, it's nice to see you.
Good to see you too, buddy. How you doing?
You sound good today.
Why, thank you. Why, thank you.
No, you didn't have any late weekends or anything like that. So no trips into the city yesterday or anything.
No, although you know what? I can hear you fine and folks on Clubhouse can hear me fine, but we can't hear Clubhouse right now on the live. So stand by one second. Let me
I'll keep talking.
see.
Hey,
Yeah, go ahead.
there's my friend Joyce. There's Jimmy RJ. Got somebody new. Austin down there. What's going on, my friend? Hey, Joyce. Not the smartest guys in the room. Here's some of the things on my list today. I'm going to read it off to you. Uh, Paying the bills, overnight successes. Are you excited about what you do? Tom said, are you prepared for the largest wealth transfer in history? We'll find out what Tom's got with that. Okay.
I mean, I think that's an important one. Uh, you know, it's it's kind of a big deal. I don't know if you've heard about this, but estimates are somewhere in the 60 to 70 trillion dollars of wealth over the
Haven't they
next.
been saying this for the last 50 years? What are you talking about?
No. So this is in the next, basically in the next decade or so. Um the end of the youngest baby boomers are set to transfer to pass to their children. So millennials, and in some cases older Gen Zers, um $68 trillion in wealth, right? So that's a variety of transfers, right? So it's not just, some of it is going to be inheritance, right? When people in the baby boomer generation pass away and their inheritance is passed on to following generations. But a big chunk of that, multiple trillions of dollars of that wealth transfer, is going to take place through the transfer and control of businesses. So businesses are going to pass from control of baby boomers to the control of millennials, younger millennials, and even some Gen Zers, right? As the tail end of the baby boomer generation kind of moves into retirement. And so my question is, we're going to have at the helm of essentially the largest part of our economy, right, which is small business. At the helm of the largest part of our economy, we're going to have people who fundamentally disagree with the way business is done now at at the helm of that portion of the economy. So business is going to change, right? The way business is conducted is going to change dramatically in the next 10 years. And so my question, what I'm thinking about is, what are those of us who are still going to be in business during this transition, right? During transfer of wealth, during this transfer of control of business, what are we doing to stay relevant and to be able to participate in business through this transition and through this transfer? Right? That's kind of what I've got on my mind. Is that a topic? Is that enough of a topic?
And that's pretty intense topic. So we could go down that way. This is not the smartest guys in the room, so we'll try to weigh in on that. Tom, in my world, I am trying to see how much debt will be transferred my way and trying to figure out, in this transfer of, you call it wealth. I'm thinking that the other day I had a dream. If anybody wants to psychoanalyze this for me, and Jimmy, I see my friend Jim down there. So think about that. I had a dream where there was a giant tree that fell down and I was down in the hole, and then they stood the tree up, and under the roots, there I was down there under the roots, and the roots were on top of me, and I was screaming, no, no, I was being buried alive. And I think, if you don't know, my father is in the landscape business and things like that. And I wonder if I was on the other side of your thought process there. So that's where I stand. But let's hear from Joyce, Prof T, and Brian. Okay, transfer of wealth. What are your thoughts on it, Joyce? Go on.
So good morning, guys, women, everyone. So I think it's so funny that you completely ignored Generation X. It's like we literally don't exist. There's a whole group of people, 58 to, I don't know, in their 30s, I guess, that we're just invisible.
Hey, was that Tom that ignored it? Who ignored it?
Well,
I
not you personally. It's just the way it works. Yeah, so it's the baby boomers go to the millennials and the Gen X, who are now my age. I'm 58. I'm the oldest of the Gen X, I guess, and specifically women. I talk about this a lot with the cannabis world. Business should be changing. We need to figure out a better way to make money and support humans, specifically caregivers, which is where my mantra comes in all the time. I'm a woman of a certain generation. I was told to lean in by Sheryl Sandberg. I got my law degree while also creating a human inside of me. There's a whole generation of women like me who did all the things educationally, but we couldn't figure out a way to really succeed the way we thought we would in business. And part of it is childcare and caregiving, that it just doesn't exist. So the idea that business will change with a transfer of wealth, and maybe the next generation that values caregivers because they've seen it and lived it, maybe we can create something that actually values humans. So I'm not afraid of that. I guess that's where I am right now. So that's my two thoughts. But don't forget Generation X. We exist. We're here.
I think me and Tom are in Gen X. Go
I was going to say I am very much a Gen Xer, so I am not forgetting about Gen X. Believe me, it's just that speaking in broad strokes, right? Most of that sort of wealth transfer that I'm talking about between the baby boomer generation and Gen Xers in terms of control of businesses and things like that, which is the sort of portion that I'm focusing on, has already happened. Right. So like baby boomers who had Gen Xers who are going to take over the business, like most of that transfer has already happened. Right. Control of those businesses has already been passed on to people in our generation. Right. So I'm not ignoring us. It's just that this transfer of wealth doesn't necessarily impact us the same way it does millennials and Gen Zers. So, and the flip side of that too is like, it's obviously we're talking in very broad strokes. So like, are some people going to be left out? Yes. Is that intentional? Absolutely not. It's just, it's the nature of the beast. You kind of can't talk about something this big without sort of painting with a broad brush, I think, and speaking in a little bit of generalities, right? But I agree with you, Joyce. I think that's the direction things are going. Things are going to, be more humanized, like, and values first, right, in business going forward, because that's what matters specifically to millennials and Gen Zers. And I think, I think it's important that businesses start shifting their focus towards how they're creating benefit for their community and what their values are, and away from short-term profitability, which has been the focus sort of under the guidance of previous generations. But that's my 2 cents. And as the title says, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. So always looking forward to hearing what other people have to say. What do you think, Dom?
Okay, let's clear this up here. We're not the smartest guys in the room. Thanks everybody for being here. I see Brian flashing, so we're going to get to him. We're talking. Here's what's on the list here. This made me think of like Tom talking about this transfer of wealth. Can your business model pay the bills? So as you think about some give and things like that, or I'm going to go out and be the world's, most whatever. Does that pay the bills? We're talking about being on multiple platforms, passing up opportunity. Are you excited about what you do? Overnight successes and Tom, transfer wealth. So Brian flashed off. We'll go Brian, then Prof T, just because he was flashing Prof T, then we'll come to you. Go on, Brian.
I can't believe you two guys left out people with disabilities and people who don't identify by X, Y, or Z. Come on. You know how sensitive we are about this. Oh boy.
Brian.
All right. Now I will address the question.
Okay. Brian decided Brian's coming out swinging at all times from now on. He's taking the governor off. So go on.
I was going to say Brian is doing a good job of stirring. How's your arms getting tired from stirring, Brian?
He's officially
I pushed a wheelchair for a lot of years. My arms don't get tired.
There you go. See, he's ready. He's ready.
Love
Go on,
that.
Brian.
Love that.
And Joyce, I absolutely admire caregivers because I've been in a wheelchair for 40 years, and I believe that there are quite a few professions, not genders, professions that are horrifically under-admired and underpaid and underappreciated. Teachers, for one, not professors. Talking about teachers, caretakers.
We are teachers. We are teachers.
I'm talking about teachers that teach these bratty kids at school, and parents think every kid is an angel. I'm talking about grammar school teachers. That being said, we'll go on to the topic now. So, Tom, and Tom, the transfer of wealth is happened throughout the course of time. And I mean, it happened through the course of an industrial revolution, right? I mean, after the industrial revolution, I mean, so we've seen this, not that we've personally seen it, but it has happened. And I think you're going to get very similar results. You're going to get some people that don't adapt just because they don't have the work ethic, the business prowess that maybe their father had who started the business. They don't believe they should work 10 hours, 12 hours a day. That's what it took to start the business. Maybe they don't have the same belief. So I think we're going to see some businesses thrive. I think we're going to see some businesses fail. And I think we'll see, some businesses that kind of chug along because like us little bit older people, we're on this, we're on a forum that not in our wildest dreams 10 years ago did we think even existed. At least, and I don't mean to put words in everybody's mouth, maybe some people did, but we've adapted. And I believe that for businesses with this change of ownership and change of wealth, which is going to happen, has been happening, that there has to be an adaptation. And without that adaptation, just like us being on here, you will fail because you're either growing or you're dying. That's a simple fact. You're either growing as a person, growing as a businessman or woman, or you're dying. And the growing part is adapting and learning and trying to keep up with the times. So that is what I believe will happen. Now, I don't know if that was an answer, but I believe you're going to see, like I say, some thrive, some make it, and you're going to see some probably fail just because of a lack of certain things that they don't have that maybe their grandfather or father had. I'm complete.
Thank you, Brian. I'm going to rat you out. I'm going to rat somebody out. I just got a text from Jim Ajay up on the stage here. He says, Brian is the smartest guy in the room. So look at that love you're getting, Mr. Swift.
Thank you, Jim, but I'm not. I'm just simple, lovable quad father. I'm a simple man who uses common sense and has learned not to be offended by words. Because I grew up in a time of sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And it is something I try to teach through a grit mindset. Because if you get so caught up in the words, you really never have an opportunity to either be creative or to teach or to develop or to enjoy. And life's too short not to be able to do all those things. So thank you, Jim, and thank you, Dom. My hats go off to you two who I just humbly follow in your shadows. So thank you. I'm complete.
Swifty, you're the man. We appreciate you. Oh, all right. Not the smartest guys in the room. This is Wednesday. We do this every Wednesday. I believe we have what do we do? Do we have a club? Is that what we have, Tom? Or do we have is it a room? What do we have? A club or a room?
We got a club. I think we were talking about maybe turning our club into a house, which I don't know if that would make it a clubhouse on Clubhouse.
A clubhouse on Clubhouse. I don't know if anybody wants. Yeah, if anybody wants to tell us that me and Tom are doing things completely wrong, then we will listen and We even changed the name of the room over the past about
Go
a year
for it.
ago. Yeah.
I say
I
go
think-
for it.
And also when I say it's very meta, I mean that in the literary sense, not in terms of it being related to Meta, the company that used to be called Facebook.
Hey, let me say something about this on this meta thing, and this is my opinion on this meta world. Like, one, they got in a little late. Like, they should have, if it was launched right at the pandemic, they might have killed. But why can't I go on Meta and see like ancient Rome? Why can't I go see the vacation I'm about to take? Why does it all have to be a cartoon? Why can't I go in, put this little headset on, and look at me be walking around Disney World? Why can't I see me walking around ancient Rome or something like that? It's all cartoon. I think they're missing the boat on it. How's that for a hot take?
I mean, there are experiences in the sort of metaverse where you can like do a 3D walkthrough of a space. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, those things exist. But it's partially because I think there's a I would venture to guess that it's a software problem, right? That it's much easier to construct and manipulate a faux world than it is to construct and manipulate a world that feels like the real world. And also, there's probably some value in keeping delineation between the two, right? So that it's clear when you're in a virtual world versus when you're in the real world. Just in terms of like look and feel and just psychologically, I feel like there's probably some value in keeping that distinction clear for people. But I don't know. Definitely, that's just my guess. But would love to hear if anybody else has thoughts on that too.
We go all over the place in this room, so that's one thing we will promise you. Okay, Prof T, if you want to jump in on any of the subjects or just drop a writing or speaking tip or a Prof T tip, whatever, wherever you want to go, Prof T, it's all you.
Oh, well, now you've got my creative and business wheels turning. So, Tom, love the topic. I have a few things to say on that. You know what, Joyce, you're absolutely right. I did. First of all, just so y'all know, I cut my teeth as a social worker. I think we are perhaps one of the lowest valued, lowest paid, lowest respected. And so that's why I decided to use my credentials, my education, my trainings, my certifications, master's degree, and decided that I wanted to teach higher education because we've got a bunch of snowflakes in these classrooms. It's a separate room. You wouldn't believe some of the things I have to deal with teaching college level courses. You would think I was teaching fourth grade. I'll leave it at that. I'm very proud of the things that I've achieved. But you know what, Joyce? I understand because, first of all, caregiving is what I do for a living in the mental health sense. I also took care of both of my elderly parents, whom both passed away. Talk about generational wealth. My parents were old, Italian, saved every dime, reused everything they could possibly reuse, never bought themselves anything new, and left a beautiful legacy and a portfolio. With that said, I also studied the ratio to men and women in business. 70% of men are public speakers. That doesn't mean women aren't interested. Most women aren't taken seriously. I see it on this platform in many rooms I go into. I see it in the academic world. Men are asked to speak at conferences more than women, and women still make less on the dollar as a man. And in honor of Women's History Month, here's my hats off to all of the women in business. It is not fun being in your own business. It's not fun being an entrepreneur. It's one of the hardest things to do when you have a family, when you're that sandwich generation with kids and elderly parents. So for all of those doing it, God bless you. And finally, what I'm going to say, if the current administration keeps going the way it's going, Tom, we're not going to have business in 10 years from now. We're going to be in a country that is going to be unrecognizable. And I believe in capitalism. Thank you, Prof T from Philly. where it's chilly. Have a good day.
There you go, Prof T. Thank you very much, and thank you for your a shout out to all the women out there doing their best. And I have a wife who's fighting in the corporate world for 20 some years, and a little daughter who's 14. And at 14, the boys teams play on the main field, and she plays her sport in a patch at the elementary school, and cows come onto the field during some of the games. Actually, there's bulls, I don't know, bulls or cows. There's two of them. They come on the corner of the field during the game. So my point being, probably, is that this inequity is starting at such a young age, and it continues through, like we saw 2 years ago when the women's NCAA teams during March Madness had to use a weight room that was the size of a closet, and then the boys had, this top-notch equipment. Well, it started 20 years prior. It started a long time prior, but there's so many people accepting along the way. Like in my daughter's case, it's not right, and it takes people like people in this room to stand up for others, regardless of what you're standing up for. Stand up for others. So thanks, Prof T. Swift, you flashed off, and then we're going to get to Jason. So go on, Brian, and we'll hit Jason. Go on.
I think sometimes we take this inequity thing and we make it sound like it's always intentional. Don't forget, the majority of the workforce years ago was men. So just plain history is that there were more men in the workforce, and it wasn't that women weren't valued. It just was the way things were. So you have more men that were speakers, that were more CEOs, that were more CFOs, that were more. We're in a transition that, I don't go around griping that the world isn't accessible. Why? It takes time. That time may be hundreds of years. I don't know. In the ADA came out 35 years ago, and I haven't seen a huge change, but it has changed. Things have gotten a bit better, but things don't change overnight. And what we're great at doing is picking out this minute segment. It's like saying the majority of speakers, 90 or 80, 70% of speakers are men. It's great. Let's look at real estate agents. 70% of real estate agents are attractive women. I mean, if we want equity, we got to look at that across the board. Do you know how many women are bricklayers? Less than 5%. Do you know how many women do cement work? Less than 1%. You know how many women are out there men are building roads? Over 95%. I'm sorry. It just, not everything is an intentional inequity towards somebody. It is an evolution. We are going through an evolution, and people sometimes shouldn't take it personal. I don't take it personal that everything isn't accessible. They didn't do that to me. I take it and I try to grow from it, and I try to push things forward. But we're going through an evolution of the fact that women were homemakers, a majority of them. And that was crazily valued. And what my mom could do, you couldn't get probably a woman today to do. And you couldn't pay her worth with what she could do. But we're going through an evolution. It's not always a personal attack on a gender or whatnot. It is simply an evolution and there is no equity. Life is not fair because we are not all equal. We are all born differently with different drives and different whys, and that's simple. I'm complete.
All right, I'm going to get us back on track here because I think we were going down a path that is not necessarily constructive to go down. And here's what I mean by that. So I'm going to hard disagree with some of what both Prof T and Brian said, right? So the hard disagreement comes from the fact with Brian, women were intentionally kept out of the workforce. That was not a circumstance of environment, right? That was an intentional choice made by the men who controlled the workforce to keep women at home. And it was clearly designed for control, right? So, and I think Joyce said it best in the chat. She said men were in the monetized workforce, women always work. And that is 100% true. Joyce said, as I said in the chat, well said, Joyce. I agree. Hard agree with that. So I absolutely strongly disagree with that sentiment that it was a kind of just a circumstance of nature or what have you. It wasn't. It was a very clear intentional choice. Women were kept out of the workforce. I don't want to debate on this anymore. I just want to kind of like put my take on the table and then move on. Okay. So women were intentionally kept out of the workforce. Now, the other side too is, or the other thing I wanted to hard disagree with, from what Prof T was talking about was, this kind of, this generic blame game that happens a lot that we hear often, which is, this thing we can't really put our finger on, this, not this person, not this thing, something that we'll call like this administration, right? Is responsible for all the bad things, like creating boogeymen, right? Is essentially what I'm kind of getting at, right? This idea that we create boogeymen to sort of blame for things we don't like, right? Or things that we disagree with, or perceived wrongs, right? Rather than looking at a situation, figuring out a solution, and then working towards creating that solution for ourselves, right? And for our communities. And that's what I really wanted to focus on this morning when I started talking about this idea of wealth transfer, is I want to focus on what are we doing in the future going forward? What are we doing to maximize the opportunity that this is going to create? This is the largest wealth transfer in history, right? In history. So have wealth transfers happened before? Absolutely. Has it ever happened on this scale before? No, right? This is new. This is uncharted territory, right? And so I wanted to talk about what we're doing in the future to create opportunity given the set of circumstances we see coming down the road, right? So I want to be forward looking. I want to be focused on positive outcomes. What are we doing positively, right, to create opportunity for ourselves in the future? And I'm not looking to get mired down in a debate about blame for past circumstances, right? Or even blame, and I don't want to get into politics either, right? Because I feel like we could go down a very dark path, and there's a lot of back and forth and both sidesing and all kinds of things. And I don't want to get into that. What I want to talk about is this this transfer of wealth is happening. What are we doing? Right? How are we going to adapt to the change in our environment that's coming down the pike? That's what I wanted to talk about. And so if you have something positive on that front to say, throw it at us. But I want to keep this focused on positive change, right? Does that make sense to everybody? Is everybody good with that?
Tom, you're good, man. All right. Hey, you know what's good about Tom is I needed him like, what was it, 3 weeks ago when I let the room almost burn down while we were in here. So, and the thing about all this stuff is we know everybody's got a different opinion and stuff, but we want to talk about media, publishing, writing books, sharing your story, and that's what we and part of this is that. How are you going to do it? So, hey, Jason, what's it? You got a while? I don't know that it's a ghost. So, Jason, what do you got on these subjects for us? We're going Jason, Alexandra, then my friend Jimmy, RJ, then Dominic. What do you got, Jason?
I do appreciate what Tom said because, and I did say in the back chat that we need to tread lightly on these perspectives, but they are considerations, all considerations, and the reason why is because people are still relying on old information. When you look at the Bureau of Statistics on Labor and Economic Values, what Tom is essentially asking is transfer of wealth. Is it happening? To what level? What degree? What do we see? And what are we feeling in our pockets as well as in our living standards? That's really the central part of the discussion. We cannot forget that. Now, the disparaging comments, I understand to everyone's degree, but to keep it in positive perspective, you will also see that no other time in history, this is the wild west of monetizing. It really is. You can make a podcast. You can become an expert without a
Oh,
degree.
Jason, preach, man. You're doing good. Now preach on this. This is where we want to go. Go.
Yeah. So literally the distribution of wealth right now is in the wild west. However, the monopolization on certain industries is a bigger concern. The other category of the family unit, more people are not getting married. According to certain statistics that I was reading a few days ago, I wish I could pull up right now, but I'm on my phone. So people's connection level with each other is becoming estranged. People are not looking at each other. So the human activity and value system reflects on to monetization of whatever industry you work in. Less people, more people are less likely to go into real professions like I'm an attorney at law. There are fewer therapists who are signing up to be a licensed therapist. There are fewer accountants. There are fewer. And why is this? So it's in several sectors: education, availability of industry for actually funding someone to be in that position. So people's value systems are constantly changing. And I do agree a lot with what Tom was saying. We got to keep it central and keep a broad mind of where is real growth happening. It's not so much if you really study the last 4 industrial revolutions, and I say 4 because there was more than the one that was going on in 1890. There was more even going on in 1850 as well as 1945. You've seen several big sectors change in labor and making money and where values really reside. So we have to understand, what are you playing with? What are you into? Are you focused on your journey or are you focused on someone else's? Like there's several people, very admirable people that I've met in Clubhouse who have managed to do well for themselves and only shortly known them. Like one's in the audience, Billy. I've learned so much from this guy just selling products and talking about things on Amazon. Who in the world would able to make the kind of money just doing that without picking up a box cutter or a tape measure or filling out some kind of ledger? Think about this. Prosperity is right in your hands, but the more that you bitch about, excuse my language, the more that you complain about less opportunity, you're not focused on the right things. Look at your time. How many hours are you really giving to what makes you income? What do they call it? Income producing activities, IPAs. Are you really looking at that? Are you doing comparative talks of what you don't have? Or are you getting into your mastery and evolving with your industry? You have to take that in consideration. So is transfer of wealth happening? Yes, it is. Is the youth really adhere to that? I don't know. I don't have the right information because I haven't been able to ask the right questions. So in my perspective, at 50 years old, there's more opportunity now for me more than ever. And I'm stand completed.
Jason, man, thank you very much. I love this idea of the wild west of money making. It's such a cool such a cool term, and then you explained that sometimes, like I'm in the publishing business and do stuff with social media and video, and sometimes I'll be talking to my dad, who's a landscaper for the last 50 years, and he can't even fathom that a world that people can make money, from an office, or that they don't go out and build something, or so, it just doesn't understand. It's just a different world. So thanks for sharing that. And I have a little thing I'm looking at right now in my office here. To your term, it is IGA, and it to me is income generating activity, and it's something I look at every day, and I try to start my business day each morning with those IGAs to make sure that, because I can get caught up in 50 different projects the wells that I'm working on for 5 years from now or 10 years or this big picture thing. So sometimes I need to make sure that I also focus on those IGAs, income generating activities. So, okay, hey, Billy, thanks for stopping in. Billy, Dimple, Heather, Adela, let's keep rolling here. We're going to meet, I'm going to look at this real quick. I don't know what BIPOC, B-I-POC, I'm reading Alexandra BIPOC, screenwriter, neurodivergent, queer, she, upcoming audio drama, The Divine Instruments of Redemption. Alexandra, where do you weigh in on everything that we've talked about? If you want to ask a tip, or if you want to ask a tip, that was dumb. If you want to share a tip or ask a question, we'd love to have it. Go on,
It was in keeping with the title, Dom. It was in keeping with the title.
Ask a tip. I'm going to write that someday.
Ask a tip.
Ask a tip, share a question.
Come to not the smartest guys in the room and ask a tip.
You got it. I'm going to clip that and share it as like a highlight of the room.
Trademark.
Oh, hold on one sec. Let's go to Alexandra.
Hey guys, this is Alexandra. Yeah, I'm just here soaking it all in. I don't have anything to say right now. I'm really just listening. Thanks. Oh, and just to help you out, Dominick, BIPOC means Black, Indigenous, People of Color.
Okay, thank you. And it is good to, this is a space where that's perfect, where we learn, we meet new people, we learn. And as the title says, not the smartest guys in the room. So now I know that answer. And anybody, just real quick, what happens in this room, because I got beat up a couple weeks ago about this. We typically we talk about these broad subjects, we throw them out there, and then sometimes we'll dig in deeper, and then we go right to left. If you see these people up here, we are going right to left or left to right. I don't know which way you want to say it. Left to right. I go across the screen. Now, at times, somebody will call like somebody's a unique expert, like Billy on producing things on Amazon. So all of a sudden, we might drop down and talk to Billy on that subject or Brian on the subject because they were uniquely qualified to talk about that subject. Then we travel back to left to right. So if you wonder why, because I can only see 9 people at a time or 12 people, that's why we do the thing we do. And usually everybody gets a chance to talk, ask questions, share their opinion. So that's the way it flows. Okay, my dear friend Jim Ajay, this is my man. I will fight for Jim Ajay, and Jim Ajay is the kind of friend that will fight for you. So Jim, if you want to weigh in on anything, go on, my friend.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. To Tom's original topic, I'm trying to get back to that. The one thing that I find interesting, and if anyone else has any experience with this, most businesses barely make it past the 3rd generation if they do. So one of the questions that I would have, I guess, is why is that? Brian mentioned earlier, maybe people worked harder, maybe people worked longer hours. My thought is, as you pass it on to other generations, I think Joyce mentioned, the way you do business changes, you have to change and adapt. You should be able to work smarter, but is the passion there for these people if something is simply passed to them? In other words, when you create something on your own and you have a passion for it, you're going to work harder and you're going to make sure that you succeed. Whenever you're handed something, whether it's from your father, from your grandfather, whoever, you may not have as much of a passion. And the reason that I even mention that is that one of my friends, they own a business. They're very successful. He makes a ton of money. And for the first time ever last weekend, he told me, I really hate my job. And I was shocked because when you look at it, he's very successful, does a great job, one of the biggest names in the industry for what he does. And he said he hates his job. He feels like he was forced into it by his father. So I kind of felt sorry for the guy at that point, even though looking at him, he has everything you'd think he'd want, successful in every way, but no passion. So the passion is part of it. The other thing to Prof T's point about, I know you don't want to get into politics, but they talk about more and more regulations on business. That's what is hampering some small businesses and hurting them. So, whether or not you agree with whoever's in office, the more regulations you have on a business, the harder it is to earn and make money. And to Dom's point, it is all about making money. If you're not making money, you're not going to have a business. So you can care about helping people doing things like that, but until you're making money, you can't do anything. So that's all I have. I'm complete.
Go, Jim. I don't know that I said it's all about making money, but if you can't pay your bills, you're not going to be able to help too many people out. So Tom said I cut him off. So Tom messaged me. He said, I'm trying to get. Yeah, I don't want him swinging on somebody. Go on.
No. I'm not going to. I was going to actually. What I was going to say to what Jim was just saying about success, about this friend of his who he said, if you look at him, he's successful in every way. I would argue that if he's not happy at his job, he is the very definition of not being successful, right? Is he financially successful? It seems like it, right? Is he, does he have financial security? Is his family taken care of? Does he have a nice house? Does he have car? Like all of those kinds of measures of success, of monetary success, does he have those things? Seems like it, right? But I would argue in the most important way, if he's not happy with his job, it really doesn't matter how much money he's making. He's not successful, right? I would argue that that's exactly what being unsuccessful looks like.
Yeah, but Tom, I'd actually argue the opposite. The job should be the least thing that you care about. Your family and everybody around you should be most important in my estimation. So in that regard, this guy does have everything. He just doesn't like his job.
So I get what you're saying, but I think if you look at the amount of time that we spend at work during the course of our lives, I can't fathom spending, like more than half of my waking hours of my entire life being unhappy to try to find some happiness somewhere else, right? I think you have to do something that allows you to find happiness regardless of where it is, right? So like whether I think you should do a job, I think you should do your best to find a job that brings you some level of happiness or satisfaction, right? That's a measure of whether or not you're successful in your job, right? And if other things are important to you, like your family, like other thing, like like things outside of your job, having a family, the health and welfare of your kids, obviously those things are important as well. But at the end of the day, I have a hard time accepting, right? And this is me. This is my personal philosophy. This is just something I could never do. I could never work that makes me unhappy because at the end of the day, what I get like a couple hours with my family a day, right? Outside of that job, and I'm sacrificing 8 hours a day for 2 hours of happiness. Like that's not a fair trade. That doesn't work out that math doesn't math in my head, right? So like that's all I'm saying is like I would categorize that as unsuccessful. That's my personal opinion.
That's very, very, very interesting, Tom, because I mean, there's different, and to both of you, to your points, is that if you look at, are you happy with your job or your role or your position overall? That's debatable. Does your mood change to what you like every day? Debatable. There's times I do not like my profession at all. And there are times I absolutely enjoy it. But I think you are right with elevating. It's your core personal beliefs, to determining your success. Only you're going to be the one to be able to do that at the end of the day. And when we understand that, when we alleviate job financial success to our overall life success, that's a big problematic area. Huge. Because to me, where I'm standing from, my family is a big part of my core of where my happiness, when they're happy, and then also my own pursuits, our personal pursuits in our own life, outside of our family, outside of our work, your passions, your explorations, your creativity, those are all measures of success. And when you can't participate in any of those things, then I 100% I really agree with what you're saying, Tom, but also to Jim's point too. It's where the scale and the measure is to the categories and elements. And we can never forget that. And I think that's what a lot of people want to know. according to the topic, and distribution of wealth, the access points. So I stand.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Tom. Jimmy, thank you, man. Appreciate
Can I
it.
say something real quick?
Yeah, have at it, man.
Yeah, I mean, and Dom, I'm going to use Dom as an example here. I mean, he mentioned earlier his father has a successful landscaping company. His son worked there last summer. They had a blast, and he does things the right way. So if something were to happen to Dom's dad tomorrow, and the company is open, Dom doesn't have the passion to take it over because he likes to do other things. If he took it over and probably changed the way some things are run, focus more on advertising and different things, he could make that business probably double what it is right now. But the passion isn't there. So when you say transfer of wealth, monetarily, sure. If you inherit money, you're happy. You're going to take the money, no big deal. But you're not necessarily going to continue businesses or keep the businesses going in a way that make you happy or anybody around you happy. So, Dom's a pretty good example because he could easily take over the business and make it successful. But is that something he wants or even cares to do? And I think that's where you get into, as you go down the generations, people aren't necessarily wanting to do that because they want to explore other things. They want to get into things that make them happy versus, what made their parents or grandparents happy. So that's it.
I agree, Jim. I think here's where I would go after that. Here's where my train of thought goes from what you're saying is, okay, fine. So let's continue making Dom the example here. Congratulations, Dom. You're the example. Let's continue making Dom the example. So Dom doesn't want to take over the landscaping business. He decides to sell it. The wealth that business represents, right? That transfer of wealth, it still exists, right? It doesn't evaporate just because Dom doesn't want to be a landscaper. He's going to do something else with that wealth that's transferred to him. So the question is, what does he do with it, right? And what do we do to optimize our ability to participate in the economy that wealth, that transfer of wealth is going to sustain going forward? That's the question, right? So whether or not somebody has passion to continue a business in its same form, I think is kind of a moot point because the wealth doesn't cease to exist, right? As it's transferred, it maybe the way it's used may change, but it doesn't cease to exist.
Fair, Thomas. Okay, Brian had a comment, and I'm gonna, since I was the example, then after Brian, I'll wrap that up, and we'll keep cruising along to Dominick without the K. Okay, Brian, go on.
Well, and I agree with Jim, and I agree with even you, Tom, on certain things, not so much on others. But the transfer, to get to what this whole room started about, what can we do? I think we have to continue to educate ourselves. I think more importantly, we have to continue to educate our children, whether they're in their 20s, 30s, whether they're 10 years old. And what we decide to educate them about, I think, is a personal thing, because we could define success all differently. To Jim's point, mine is faith, family, and friends. Money probably being fourth, because money doesn't solve problems, but not all problems. It does some. But there is going to be, whether we like it or not, there's going to be a large transfer, right? I think we all agree with that. And I think, just like we're doing here, as I said earlier, we're on something we never thought would exist years ago, but we've learned how to use this chat room, this clubhouse, and we were learning how to use AI. Back, a lot of us are from a generation when we had the rabbit ears and tinfoil, and now we're talking AI. You talk about huge leaps. So I think we have to continue to grow. We have to continue to be open-minded, because I'm not sure who said it, but if you can't make money now, it's a shame, because there is no, I'm going to say it, I don't know history word for word, but I believe this is probably one of the easiest times to make money, as we've seen, from an untraditional way. And there are more opportunities, I think, today because of this technology, because of this transfer of wealth, to be successful. if that's, part of your definition, which we do need to make money, we do need to pay bills, it does smooth out the road. So I think keep growing, keep educating, trying to keep an open mind, but also sticking to your core values, which I think we all have certain core values, and I think we all have some things that are, you know, things that we find aren't part of our core values, but we all have an opportunity here to learn and grow with technology as we've seen. I think that's important, and an opportunity to collaborate far beyond what we did years ago. I mean, I collaborate with Dom, who I didn't know 6, 7 years ago, and now I try to join your Dom and Tom's room and learn just a wealth of information, and not just do that, but I do a lot of self-reflection. And I think that's important to self-reflect and be honest with yourself about certain things, because sometimes that opens up a new world for you, because you have nobody to point a finger at but yourself, and understand the opportunities out there, because they are vast and tremendous. I'm complete.
Thank you, Brian. Hey, not the smartest guys in the room. We do this every Wednesday. Since I was the example for a while, I grew up in the landscape business. I started doing it when I was about 12 years old, out in the fields, cutting yew bushes and lopping them. And I started going out on the jobs with grown men when I was about 15, and spent a lot of time doing that. It wasn't for me. Love my dad. He's probably one of my best friends in the world. He's actually more than a best friend to me, because I just consider him my dad as a role model. I'm like, he's a larger than life figure. So like, people are like, oh, is he your best friend? Well, he's my dad. That's bigger than that. And so I probably wasn't good at being a and son, meaning having dad tell me what I wanted to do was wrong, or he had been in business 40 years at that time, and I'd give him a suggestion. He'd be like, I've been in business 40 years. We're going to do it this way. So it wasn't for me, but I wanted to double back on this conversation as a motivational guy. Webster's defines success as the achievement of a desired aim or purpose. So it doesn't say $10 million. It says desired aim or purpose. So meaning whatever that success is to you, and I'm going to say, this isn't like me, F everybody else. Whatever success is to you, that's what matters. So at some points in my life, I was an insurance salesman. I hated my job as an insurance salesman. But my son was an insulin diabetic, and it allowed me to leave work and go give him shots at school at that time. So he was able to participate in the things in preschool and stuff like that. So at that point in my life, it was what I needed. It gave me what I needed. At other points, I have friends that maybe work at a job manufacturing, making widgets, and at the end of the day, they get to leave at 4:00 and go chase all these other dreams. And that job that they do from 8 to 4 allows them to leave early to coach a baseball team, or to go to Cleveland Indian games or something like that. So more power to them. So I'm always passionate about this. Do what makes you happy, but sometimes that happiness is a means to an end. Maybe what really makes you happy is coaching baseball with your kids. Well, coaching rec baseball is from 4:00 to 9:00, so that's what you've always wanted to do, because you lost your dad, and he was a great rec coach, and so now you want to follow in his footsteps. So I'm just a believer in do what makes you happy, and you then will have succeeded. So, all right, that's my take on it. And since you used me as an example, I get my take on it. All right, now we're going to Dominick without the K. Dominick, only because his name is spelled Dominic, and I am spelled Dominick. So let's see what his last name is. Mr. Lawson, where do you weigh in on all this stuff? How are you doing today, my friend?
I am living the dream and loving this conversation. Thank you so much, Dominic with the K, man. I hope you're doing well. Tom, you as well. I haven't been in the room for a while, but you guys always have and spark great conversations in here. And so just kind of happy to kind of be back and kind of weigh in a little bit. Um, there's many different directions we can go with this conversation, but a few things I'll share is this: is that if we are in a transition or a transference of wealth, if you will, that means we're also in a transition of things here. And I think that anytime there is a transition, there's opportunities. I think 2008 with the economic crisis taught us that, and I think 2020 taught us that during the pandemic. And so, if those two things are true, then there are some things that we can do. I think number one is that if we're trying to get a piece of the pie in this wild, wild west, is to think about what skills we currently have that are transferable into other regions, into other fields of endeavor, if you will, right? And I think that can go a long way into figuring out what you like, what you don't like, but also to get a piece of the pie if that's something that we're trying to do. I think the second thing is and Brian said this earlier, education, if you will. I think education is a big piece into if we're in a transitional area to take advantage of, and that education doesn't have to look like going back to school. That education also doesn't have to look like YouTube University. It's whatever piece of information you can get your hands on in order to do that. And lastly, and just kind of goes back to Dominick with the K point, is defining what that success is. And I mean, like, writing it down. Like, for me, I want to be one of the best podcasters in the world. To do that, for me, one of the best podcasters to ever do it. For me, that looks like having awards in 7 different genres of podcasts. I'm 3 down, 4 more to go. 1 for business, 1 for mental health, 1 for history. And so to show that range that I can make award-winning content, no matter the genre is, that's what defines success for me. So I think that's important. So if we are in this transitional phase or this transference of wealth, if you will, I think those are some things to think about. And one last thing, I'll just say this and I'll land my plane here. When it comes specifically to podcasting and defining success, if you will, I think a lot of times we fall into this trap when it comes to podcasting that, like, I got to have all these downloads. I got to have all this stuff. I made more money in podcasting when I stopped giving a crap about downloads, because I just transitioned into, okay, what is this company looking for in creating content? What is that company looking for in creating content? So I just wanted to share that. Thank you so much for having me on stage, and I love the conversation. I'm done.
Thanks, Dominick. Just I want to follow up, because we have a lot of podcasters on. So when you say, what is this company looking for, are you making podcasts for companies, or are they your sponsors, or what do you mean by that?
So basically, a lot of businesses are getting into podcasting. One of the companies that I actually work for is a behavioral health company. And so I create content for them as far as, like, mental health, addiction, trauma, things of that nature. But also there are companies, small businesses, who are just looking for content. Like, they do what they do very well. And so you reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed that you sell widgets. How are you telling the story of the widgets that you sell? Hey, I can probably create, maybe 1 to 2 episodes of podcast, for your company, if you will. And so it's not necessarily that they're sponsors. Like, I'm literally creating content for them, if you will. Learn about their company, learn about their history, and then create content for them. So, and it goes back to what I was saying before. It's like, we don't have to think about the skill sets that you have now and see how they transfer into other arenas. Just because we talk about downloads and podcasting doesn't necessarily mean that, like, that's the only way to make money in this game. If you're a producer, if you write copy, things of that nature, if you may not be the greatest podcaster, but you're a masterful editor, there's an avenue for you. So I think, just kind of going back to the thing, if we're talking about this transference of wealth, if you will, think about those transferable skills that you have that can apply to other avenues, and just think outside the box.
Thank you, man, Mr. Lawson. I appreciate it, and I thought transferable skills, great point. I wonder how many of us aren't utilizing. I wonder how many of us right now have a skill that we aren't utilizing, where somebody else is like, man, Brian Swift has this skill, or Heather, or Dominick, or Charlie, Joyce, and I'd love to have them do X, Y, or Z for me, but we're not marketing ourselves appropriately. Interesting point.
Just to give an example, like my wife, lifelong education. No, she's an educator for a long time. Now she's been consulting in education for 10 years, and she writes curriculum. But she's finding more and more companies outside of the education space needing curriculum writers. So that's a transferable skill in a entirely different area that you wouldn't think. I think sometimes we fall victim to this linear mindset of thinking that, like, oh, if I write curriculum, I have to be in education. No, there may be a truck driving company that needs a curriculum for some reason to train drivers on how to do certain things. So I just challenge people to try to think outside the box as much as possible. Done speaking.
Thank you, my friend. We are going to keep cruising. Not the smartest guys in the room. Tom, we're heading to Charlie. Does that make sense to you? Am I on schedule here?
Yeah, man. I think we're he's next on my list.
All right.
Like,
And
if we're going down, if we're going in order, Charlie's up next.
Okay, yeah. And so then it's Heather, Julie, then Dimple, and then our friend Billy. And anybody that wants to come up, you can raise your hand. Sometimes I go down and I'll click on you. Some people get mad. They're like, why do people get mad at me? Like, come on. Sometimes I see somebody, I'm scrolling through, and I'll be like, I'll click on and I invite them up. And then sometimes I'll get a message, I've only been in your room 10 seconds and you invited me up. Sorry, man. I'm just trying to be nice, but that doesn't happen lately, but it does happen. Charlie, what's going on, man? How you feeling today? What's up with Charlie?
I've been awfully quiet today. You think I should bring it right to 11 o'clock?
Yeah. Just go have a montage. Go on.
All right. I won't do that. I'll spare everybody. Just listening. A lot of good stuff going on back and forth. Glad that Tom jumped in to be a moderator earlier. All good stuff that could have been debatable, but it was glad to get back on track. I always like to see, after we have something like that, who stays and who leaves. That's always very telling to me. I will say this. I've worked with a lot of PhDs. I've worked with a lot of guys who got out of prison. I work with a lot of people with MBAs. I think the highest and best quality of an education would be to grab yourself every morning, look in the mirror, and say, what kind of attitude am I going to bring to the world today? You want success? Put a smile on your face and be the person that others feel comfortable around and feel good around. And I got to tell you, you'll get the success of Forrest Gump. I took myself with a heavy New York accent to the Midwest, and people said to me, you're an outsider, you're Italian, you speak different. There's going to be dirt under your feet and there'll be no money to be made. I took the Forrest Gump attitude and built one of the biggest trash recycling businesses that could be done in such a short time, and hired everybody that couldn't get a job for multitudes of reasons, whether they were coming out of prison, whether they were having difficulties with substance abuse and were getting that first day sober but didn't have a work history. Attitude. I went to the hospital. I was on the borderline of checking into a coma or coming out. My attitude stayed positive, because when you're in ICU, you dare not say, how dare this happen to me? You look over to the left or right, and there are people far worse, sicker than you. Again, I'll repeat myself with this mantra: attitude. I think that it's often when we make it about ourselves, we personalize stuff, and then we get resentments. And resentments is the greatest blocker of the sun. And comparison is the thief of joy. I met a young lady many years ago when I was young also, had a successful business. I asked her what did she wanted to do, and it was nothing that she was doing currently. She wanted to be a recruiter. She wanted to hire people in hospitals and make a difference. And that was 18 or 19 years ago. Single mom, minority, in the Midwest. And today she's probably got one of the most successful recruiting businesses in America, and recruits for some of the biggest hospitals. If you want to blame, there's a ton of blame out there. There's a ton of regulation. There's always been headaches in this life. Find the pockets of goodness find the people that are making it. I was in the trash recycling business, the trucking industry, human resource. There was so much regulation, had the highest work comp, you name it, Department of Transportation, looking over my back, audits. I still made a heck of a living. I got paid more than I ever deserved. So that's my 2 cents today. I think that if I'm going to complain, I'm not in the source of life. I'm in the problem. I like sunny days, not cloudy days. Thank you for letting me share that. That lands my plane.
Thank you, Charlie. Love the positive vibes, positive attitude. You know, that's my sweet spot. I love a little motivation and inspiration. That's what I my feed. You guys don't know this about me. My feed on social media, me and my wife joke about it, is full of puppies and rainbows. I mute I'm like, oh, this politics, mute. This happened. You know, I see nothing. I live in Pennsylvania where it's cloudy 9 months a year. On my feed, it's probably all sun and like pictures of Florida and California and stuff. I don't even know what the weather is outside unless I walk out there. So, hey, not the smartest guys in the room. Let's keep this rolling. We got Heather, Julie, Dimple, Billy. We got Emmy, Kathy. Anybody want to come on up? Come on up. Heather, where you weigh in on stuff? What's going on?
I mean, there's so many topics going on. I will say I like that part about the resentment. That was good, that it blocks out the sun. I really liked that. And
Hold on,
the
Heather. Do you think Charlie's working on new material? I mean, because he had a couple hits like that where you're like, yeah, I would use that one over and over. Charlie, hold on, back to Charlie. Charlie, who's working on material on us?
No, I'm not working on it, but it's just the reality. You know, Dominic, I will tell you, I had a lot of problems before I had my stroke. And now I have less problems after having a stroke. I had less gratitude. I was a guy that lived in a climate-controlled home and did everything I wanted to do and still complained a lot. I complained with 4 loaves of bread under each arm. This stroke has given me a dose of gratitude like there's no tomorrow. I look at life differently today. And for those that haven't had an event like this, let my event serve purpose to you. If you're talking, walking, and you're going to eat today and have shelter from the elements, you got a good handle on having a near perfect day.
God bless, Charlie.
There we go. Thank you, Charlie. And sorry to cut you off, Heather. I get sidetracked. That's what happens. Sorry. You deserve better than me. Go on, Heather.
You're totally fine. I'm the one who brought up Charlie again, so you're fine. Yeah, I like that part. And then also like the transferable skills. So I am a second generation entrepreneur. My mom owned a gift boutique storefront, brick and mortar, for a decade. I started working there when 5th grade, 6th grade. And so, you know, I have all of these crazy skills. Like I can make a dried floral wreath. I can make swags. I can make floral arrangements. I can make hand pressed wedding invitation keepsake frames. You know, I helped my mom box up. You know, my mom got on QVC, and so I helped. You know, it was like these crazy dried floral arrangements that were these wooden like fences, and they had these little like clay pots attached to them, and then like it was the 90s, you know, like dried florals was a thing. And you know, when 2008 came along, that's when she closed her doors, and you know, I was the one who turned the key to lock it for the last day, you know. And I have all these transferable skills, so like I don't have the same passion as her for that, you know, for the dried florals and the arrangements, and the constant smell of lavender gives me a headache just thinking about it. But you know, you still learn so much about so many other things that you can transfer into your business if you decide to become an entrepreneur yourself. So just remember that you may not want to take over your parents' business, but just know that we're a different breed, I guess. Those who have worked in the family business and has grown up and learned all of these different type of skills, like, invoicing and shipping and, payroll. And so just all this different stuff, we can transfer that into our business, and still be passionate about our business, but still use the education and experiences that we had from our parents' business. So, and my mom is actually in her second business. She closed her doors in 2008. She went to work at a very large furniture company, Raymond Flanagan. And she became one of like the top salespeople. And then she had a stroke, a mini one, and she was like, I can't be on my feet all day. So now she has her own pottery business called the Fairy Potter. And she makes little fairy houses to put in your garden. So, shout out to all the second generation entrepreneurs out there who are, forging their own path while using the experiences of their parents' path. So thanks, guys.
Heather, true that. Like I say, my dad's still in business, 81 years old, still works. He could still fight all of us, I think, still that fired up. Like it will snow and he'll be out there like for 30 straight hours. Like, what is going on? But he loves it. And I've learned so much from him, things that I took into the corporate world of pharmaceuticals and insurance and things like that, and things that I take into my business every day. My dad was great at collecting debt, and I think I am. We would say I would give you this when I worked for him. Some points I'd bid jobs or whatever, and I'd be like, "Oh, Dad, I got this new landscaping job. We're gonna landscape their pool. We're gonna add trees there. They want this, this, this," and he'd say, "Did you get the check?" And I'd be like, "Oh, no, but they told me they're going to give me," he'd say, "Did you get the check?" And I'd be like, "Oh, they promised." And he said, "Until you're buying me a beer with that check," he would say, "don't celebrate the results of that." And so in any of the sales that I did, from 401k sales to pharmaceuticals, I always kept that you never know what could happen, right? And you think you got the deal, and things change from one day to the next. Things change, people pass, they get home and have second thoughts. So he was always good at making sure to close that deal however he could, and that was getting the check. But he taught me a lot. Anyway, Julie was a family businesser as well. I think her dad was your dad in law too, and you were in law. So weigh in on these topics, Julie. Straighten us out. Let's see how that was a terrible segue, but so let's see. I'm going to give it Julie Loken, Mediacasters, obsessed with podcasting, publishing, presenting, writing for Entrepreneur Magazine. That's me reading her bio. So hold on. I'm going to push view full profile. CEO. Ooh, CEO. She's got a butterfly here, bringing the media to you. All right. Street cred. She's got street cred too. Julie, you want to weigh in on all this stuff? You around? What do you got?
That's a crazy introduction, first of all. But nice. Yeah, I love this. And I'm just curious, like all those with the entrepreneurial spirit and heart. And I think a lot of us are. Did we learn it from our parents? Because, yeah, my father built a huge law firm in our area, and I watched him growing up every time. And it's funny, every time I see someone, doing something nefarious, let's just use Clubhouse as an example, or thinking like this way is a real way to run a business. I always go back to watch how I watched my dad like build sorry, my dog is growling in the back. How my dad built a business really through creating relationships and getting out there and being of value. And that always sets me straight when I'm like, oh, thinking about chasing shiny objects. But this room has been really inspiring. I've just been listening to it for a while. And whenever we think we're having a bad day, I mean, coming to this room, Dom and Tom and all the merry misfits that we are, it, all of our stories, we never know whose life we can change by just sharing our story. And I heard that with Charlie today. It was powerful, and everything that comes out of Dom's mouth usually is motivational or inspirational. So yeah, that's my random thoughts of the day. And I'm wondering, like, where did we learn this from? Where did we learn to really embrace this entrepreneurial spirit? So I'll just throw that one on the table. Thanks, everybody. Great to hear everybody.
Thank you, Julie. You inspire me, and I want to say, like, when we talk about ups and downs, something I'm just thinking about. Like, I worked for my dad for all these years, and it wasn't for me. I worked for him for a lot of years, and I remember one of our contracts was the mall, and I would have these feelings of maybe I should be out doing something else. Maybe I was trying, but I was still young or as an ensign or whatever I was doing at the time. I remember one time we were at the mall, and I sit down on a curb and I started crying. Crying. I was weed whacking, and I started crying out on the curb. And my friend Carlo Capasso, he worked for us too, at work there, and he was like, "Dom, you got to get up. You got to get up." And I was just so deflated. That's life, man. And so as we get knocked down, and we all find our path eventually. But that was just one of those days. Here I am, just crying on a curb out in public because I just didn't find my way yet. So I guess it happens. Okay, let's talk to Dimple. I was just coming to Dimple, and now she left. Okay, Billy, you can weigh in on anything, but one thing I need to ask you about, Billy, this Amazon Associates. So you make the videos. Do you have to put the videos on a new YouTube page, or can you put them on any YouTube page? How does that work? You mind that my mind goes a completely different direction? You mind weighing in? Because I started doing that, Amazon affiliates or whatever, using the links. It seems to make sense. But I see you doing it with video. And do you just teach us a little about that, if you don't mind?
Well, I mean, to jump in, Amazon Associates anyone has access to it, right? You just go sign up. It's their affiliate program, so you can create content. You just have to document where you're going to publish the content inside of your associates dashboard. And then when people click on those links and make a qualified purchase, you make a little bit of commission off of it. So that's access to anyone. Now, what I'm a part of and focus 90% of my time on is called the Amazon Influencer Program. And this is where I have access as an influencer to post directly onto Amazon's website, and they will distribute that out to like product pages, a new Inspire tab that they got launching, and all those other places. So they'll put that video in several different places on their website, and then when people watch it, click on it, watch it, put stuff in their cart, make a qualified purchase, I get a small commission off of that. So that's what I've done over the last 8 months. I think I've uploaded dang near 1,200 videos or 1,200 pieces of content. I can also post photos and go live on Amazon as well. So yeah, man, I'm not doing too much with just affiliate their Amazon Associate Program. I mean, I generate some sales through that, but 99% of what I make from Amazon is directly off of their website. So yeah, it's fun, man. It's a whole new world.
All right, so you're not getting out of it that easy, man. So this influencer program. So you because you had a story one day where you were on a trip or something, and you picked up you saw a blower in the garage, and you made a video about the blower. And just give us a little bit about that, because earlier in the room today we were talking about this being the Wild West of Wild West of making money, Wild West of transferable skills. So obviously Billy can make a video, Billy can speak, Billy's an influential person. So would you describe that for us?
Yeah, man. So the thing, and this is with associates or the influencer program, but I'm just talking about the influencer program, is I can make a video about anything I want as long as it's available and sold on Amazon. So if it's sold on Amazon and it's currently available, I can make a video, tag the product. That video gets hopefully pushed to that product page. When buyers watch it, etc., I get paid off of that once the product ships. So that's kind of one of the aspects about the program, is like you can do whatever. So you don't have to go buy product. You don't have to get brands to send you product. You can literally go through your house, see what all is on Amazon, and rock and roll. That's what I did with my first 30 videos. I was out of the country, and I didn't have access to a lot of products. So I just basically got bored one day, shot everything on my desk, and started making $300 to $600 a month on average for 10 months straight. And it was the quickest money I ever made through content. And I was like, okay, this is crazy. So when I got home back in July, I started focusing on working with brands and doing brand deals and, having them send me product and pay me to make the video. I keep the product, I sell the product, and make the commission off Amazon. So monetizing it, 3 to 4 different ways per product. So yeah, I mean, and just as I'm talking, the UPS guy, USPS guy is pulling up, I'm sure, with the truckload of products. So I get probably 5 to 10 products a day, doing a lot of deals and having a lot of fun. But to everyone's point, when people go, "Oh man, you make it look so easy," I spent 10 years producing a TV show that I hated editing, and I sat in the editing booth, dark, lonely, by myself for my entire 20s. I'm 36 now, but for my entire 20s, I spent most of my life by myself in a dark room editing someone else's content. And so, when you're doing that kind of stuff, and then like 10 years, 16 years later, well, probably 4 or 5 years later after I stopped doing it, or almost 10 years, I guess, it's like now I do this for myself full time, but the learning curve was nothing. So I can make 10, 15, 20 product videos a day, just live to drive, getting stuff done, and be well ahead of the curve and learning this whole like live selling thing, which I think is the future of retail, internet retail businesses and e-commerce or whatever. Because it's still a small percentage. It's like less than 20%. I think it's like 15, 16% of retail's online. So it's like a massive market to be had. So anyway, man, yeah, I basically repurposed, we all love that word as content creators, all these skill sets that, I honestly hated for so long. And now I make thousands of dollars a week off of the same skill sets. So it's pretty amazing. But it's just, and one thing too, Dom, is like I lost a business in 2020, a t-shirt printing business where we made, like I learned off YouTube, talking about YouTube University. I learned this business off of YouTube, how to print a t-shirt, because people asked me when I was designing their logos, hey, can you put this on a shirt? And I sent them to the guy down the road. Well, then I got smart and was like, I should learn how to do this. And I did that for several years as a side hustle. And then in 2020, signed some of the biggest contracts ever. And all those went away because they were with nonprofits, big crowds, product tables. And I didn't diversify my income. I basically went all in on one market and totally got toasted during the pandemic. However, it was from there that I started to really focus hardcore on podcasting, got into working with brands and brand deals and sponsorships, and then got on Clubhouse and people started asking me, how do you do that? So I coached people for like a year of how to make money with their content. And that's where I met the guys who introduced me to the Amazon Influencer Program and told me, hey, we're making a couple $1,000 a month live streaming. I'm like, bullshit, you are. There's no way you're doing that. And then, it's all the rest is history. But it's all about perspective. And my last thing here, I'll land my long plane ride, is it's all about the journey. When I stopped focusing on the destination, I think especially in the United States, it's like, here's this 5-step plan to success. Go to graduate high school, go to college, which they started talking to you about in middle school. Your life is going to be amazing. And then that's not reality. Like the picture and the storyline we're sold for the majority of the people who participate, it is not reality. And, figure out your own journey and just enjoy it. And it's going to change. And sometimes you're going to get smashed in the face. But I don't know, man, I'm just crazy enough to keep showing up as an entrepreneur and just changing my perspective to go, well, just like Charlie said earlier, well, I could be in a ditch somewhere. I could be addicted to drugs instead of addicted to entrepreneurship. There's like a lot of things that could be worse. and I just keep showing up. And so this year, I'll make more money as an entrepreneur the first quarter of this year than I've made as an entrepreneur every year for the last since 2000. So anyway, I'm walking here, and I'm going to jump off and get my son out of the stroller. Appreciate you, Tom.
Hey, Billy, we appreciate you, man. We appreciate your honesty, your candor, and that hustle, man. Imagine that you. One of my second notes today was overnight successes, and Billy says it flat out. You know, he blew up recently, but he's been working on it for 10 years. 10 years to get that moment, and will you be ready for that moment? And this guy was. He put in the time, put in the effort. So kudos, man. So before we close, does anybody have any questions? We're gonna let
I just
Tom
want to say
wrap it.
one thing real quick, Tom. I
Yeah,
just want to
and we
say,
got
Billy,
Dimple too. Sorry, go on.
Billy, I know you're going to hop off, but please check your DMs. I just shot you a DM. And I realized when I did that, I went into the back channel and I looked, and we had started messaging almost a year ago, and that, it went cold. So anyway, I wanted to reinvigorate that. I sent you a message in the back channel. Hit me up, send me an email. And let's connect, man. Cause I think there's a lot we could at the very least, commiserate about. So I'd love to chat with you outside of here, but I just wanted to throw that out before you hop off.
Yeah, man. Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. And we'll definitely connect for sure.
Love it. Thank you, guys. Okay, now we're gonna Dimple. I tried to come to you before, and you just as soon as I pushed Dimple, you were gone. So we'll go to Dimple, and then I think Jimmy might have had a question. So go on, Dimple.
Yeah, so I got a phone call that I had to take.
No, I felt bad, so I'm like, oh no, I hope she's not
No, I
mad.
didn't leave purposely.
Okay, see, I always worry that everybody's mad.
I got a phone call like about someone I was trying to call about a press release, so I had to take that. So I don't. Yeah, I mean, there's so many topics. I don't really know what to share, except I will just say that, I think that as like the world is like opening up and changing, like it's opening back up and all that. And of course, we have Clubhouse, but I also think that it's important to like do things outside of Clubhouse too, because sometimes like Clubhouse is great, but it can also be like a big distraction. It can take up a lot of time. So I think we all have to have that discipline because there's so much other stuff that has to get done too. And sometimes we're in here in so many rooms all the time, and that's great. But then we also have to like be like, okay, no Clubhouse for a few hours. We're going to like create content. We're going to do other things. We're going to podcast. We're going to edit all that stuff. And I think that balance is really, really important. So that's the only thought I can think of. There's like not a set topic. So I'm like, I don't know what to share. I'll just share anything random. So there you go.
Dimple, that was a good one. And
I'm sorry.
No, it was a good one. And we do roam from topic to topic. So some people are probably like, what the heck are these guys talking about? But your point there of how many people fall in love with in Instagram Reels or Clubhouse or whatever, and then they're like consumed by it, but they forget about all these other things that are important to them as well. So your point is well said. And hey, Clubhousers can't be on here 24/7. You should be on here when we have these rooms. So Jim, did you want to say something? You had clapped before. Go on.
If I was just clapping for Billy, I think what he said is, and what you reiterated was important. Yeah, I think too much in life we try to find instant gratification, no matter what it is. If you want to lose weight, you want to lose 15 pounds tomorrow, and it takes time. You want to. So the point is, anything you put hard work into, you're going to get some kind of return from it. And the key ingredient there is patience. It doesn't happen overnight. It might take time. Some of the biggest sales I've done recently have been, sales cycles of 6 years or more, and eventually things pay off. So, I think just be patient, keep your head down, keep moving, be productive, and immerse yourself in whatever you want to do, and that will pay off. I think that's the problem sometimes with, people today, is that they just want everything right now and instant gratification. It just doesn't work that way. So that's all I have.
Good stuff, Jim. Jim, Dimple, Billy, Julie, Heather, Joyce, Tom. What do we got down there? Brent, Kathy. I didn't know how to pronounce that. Wendy, thank you guys for being here. We're gonna now. This is the point. Anybody who's been in the rooms before knows that I like to hand it off to Tom, and hopefully he's been thinking about something that is going to mesmerize us with his intelligence before we leave this room today. Hey, by the way, Tom's getting married in 2-3 weeks here. He's having a wedding. So congrats on that, Tom. It's coming soon. But so take us home, Tom, and with the added pressure. Go ahead.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks. Well, you always add the pressure to my wrap up. So I'm so used to it. I'm habituated to it, as behavioral scientists would say, that it doesn't really feel like pressure anymore. So sorry to burst that bubble. If you thought you were putting me under stress, playfully, sorry, it's not working. So just try harder. You'll think of some other way to do it, to mess with me, I'm sure. But yeah, and thank you for the congratulations on the wedding. I appreciate it. Yeah, we're getting married on St. Patrick's Day. So a little over 2 weeks away, 2 weeks from Friday to be exact. And the beauty of getting married on St. Patrick's Day is we'll never forget our anniversary. It's real easy. It's just every year, St. Patrick's Day, we're going out for our anniversary. So anyway, here's what I wanted to wrap up with. So I unintentionally lobbed a hand grenade into the room earlier when I started talking about this transfer of wealth, and the changes, the harbinger of change that it is going forward. It turned into a little bit of a hot button issue for a few folks. We actually had a couple of folks leave the room as a result of some of the conversation that went on. So didn't mean to do that. It wasn't my intention to lob a hand grenade. Again, not always the smartest guy in the room, and sometimes we all we do things unintentionally. But here's what I was really getting at. This came to me kind of later in the conversation, but I wanted to kind of sum up what I was really getting at with a perspective that I heard somebody share the other day. They were specifically talking about AI like ChatGPT. And I know we've talked about AI a bunch of times in here before, that it's neither artificial nor really intelligent, not at least in the way that we consider human beings to be intelligent. But that aside, there's this growing fear, right, that AI is going to replace people, right? That AI is going to eliminate a huge number of jobs. And that fear is very analogous to the fear of automation, the fear of robotic technology in the manufacturing processes, in industrial manufacturing processes, in the invention of going back even further, the invention of gas powered and diesel powered engines replacing horses, trucking. So this is a theme that repeats, that people are always, there tends to be fear of new technologies, right? That we don't really fully understand, and we're not sure yet. Like, we can't see the future. We're not exactly sure how this is going to all shake out. But here's how I heard it. Here's the concept that I really landed on, thinking it embodied it well, that I wanted to share. And I think it is analogous to what I was talking about with this wealth transfer that's coming down the pike. And it's this: there was an attorney being interviewed about AI, specifically AI drawing up contracts, and specifically contract law, right? Which is a place where there's some concern that jobs for attorneys are going to be eliminated. And this lawyer, I think, said it best when he said, I don't think AI is going to replace attorneys. I think attorneys who use AI as part of their practices are going to replace attorneys that don't use AI as part of their practices, right? And so that's what he's getting at there, is the attorneys that adapt to the current and utilize the current technology and the new emerging technology are the ones who are going to find success. And the ones that resist inevitable change are the ones who are going to fail. And so what I was really getting at, the question I was trying to ask, and I think the question we should ask ourselves on a regular basis is, what are we doing to adapt to the ever-changing environment we exist in? What are we doing every day to adapt to change, right? And to incorporate new technologies, new procedures, new values, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing business into our daily lives. I think it's something we have to do on a regular basis. I think it's something we should incorporate into our daily practices. And that's really what I was getting at, was what are we doing to adapt to this never-ending change that happens around us? Just a little light thinking for everybody to do as we leave the room this week. So I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you very much. Value all your opinions, even when we don't agree. I don't want anybody, if we disagree, to take that as cause to leave the discussion. I just wanted to get us back on track earlier. So my intention was never to offend, but really to just kind of get the conversation back on track and focused on positivity rather than going down a rabbit hole of negativity. And that's it. So really appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much. Thank you as always, Dom, for the keeping the room moving and helping us move everything along. Really appreciate you as always, and appreciate everybody being here with us, even though we are not the smartest guys in the room. Thanks very much. We'll see you guys next Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Not the smartest guys in the room. Love you guys. Bye.